All right, Sean Len here, back with the Fight Report. And right now we'll go over the results of UFC 249, Cyborg versus Blencowe. And make sure to check out the Fight Report. My MMA page, I've got the full video up when I was doing post-fight media for Bellator 249. I asked Steve Mowry a question and also Chris Cyborg a question about their fights. So make sure to check that out. We have some exclusive post-fight media coverage from Bellator 249. We did over, teleconference, obviously. Virtual media, not in person, but still counts. And, yeah, great fight card. I feel like, when we look at Bellator 249, I feel like their official debut on CBS Sports. And it was a prime time. Obviously they're on prime time. The other fights were on, during the day. So this was like their prime time debut. Also, it's on DAZN, so if you have DAZN, it's right there. In the first fight of the night, we had Sayana Awad defeated Mandal. Nalo actually didn't defeat him. It was ruled a no contest, an accidental groin strike, a minute 44 in this fight. And for Mandal Nalo, this was a fight that, he was actually looking forward to. He hadn't fought in a while. He was looking forward to, finally gain a fight where he would be, able to come in there and show what he had. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was almost like his previous fight, which also ended in a similar result. So he was not happy about that, but, he looked like he was ready to move forward and ready to, take on whoever is in front of him moving forward. So he's now 7-1 is Nalo. And again, it was ruled a no contest, taking on Sayana Awad, who was a number one contender at one point for the Bellator Lightweight Championship. So that's interesting to note. But yeah, his last fight was a loss to Khalif Moda by leg kicks in the third round at Bellator 231. And that was back in October. So that was about a year ago. So you're looking for probably a quick turnaround for Nalo since he's not injured relatively. And maybe a rematch with Sayana Awad. Prior to that, we had Andrew Cappel defeated Joseph Creer by 185-pound division, the middleweights. And Andrew Cappel is a former HFC middleweight champion. Obviously, for Cappel, he got a big win over Kimball in his Bellator debut, beating him by a big, huge knockout in the first round. His last fight was against John Salter. He lost by arm triangle choke to a great submission guy and BJJ guy. So great to see Cappel get it back on track here in Bellator's middleweight division with a doctor stoppage cut over Joseph Creer to keep moving forward. Also, some memorable stuff from the undercard. We had Christian Edwards defeat Hamza Salim by submission rear naked choke, second round. And Christian Edwards now 4-0. He made his professional debut prior to Bellator, and now he is 4-0 in the Bellator cage. Actually made his professional debut at Bellator 224. That was his first professional fight. And now his last fight, a decision. 3 out of his 4 fights are all finishes. And he is a prodigy of John Jones, trains at Jackson Wink. But looking to step out of the shadow of Jones, I feel, and make his own claim to the Bellator light heavyweight title. And expect to see him on the main card soon. And we've had him on the Fight Report, so definitely you want to give a shout out and some love for him. Also, another guy we'll have on the Fight Report will be Damon Blackshare. He defeated Mike Kimball by submission rear naked choke, second round. And Damon climbed to 8-3. And we'll be looking forward to talking to him this week on the Fight Report. He's now got 2 straight victories in a row, come from CES MMA as well in the Northeast. So Damon Blackshare, a successful debut for him. And another great finish was Albert Gonzalez take on Zema. It was a second out of the 3 rounds. Albert Gonzalez won by TKO knockout. Basically, the guy didn't answer the third round. Great finish for him. Great win for Albert Gonzalez moving forward. And then we had Aviv Gonzalez defeated Logan Neal by Chimera in the first round. Great fight. I feel like Gonzalez, when we see that, it was actually replayed on the broadcast. And the guy comes from Israeli, Tel Aviv, Australia, Israel, and one of the toughest guys. Now he is undefeated, 5-0. All of them in Bellator MMA. And definitely a guy to be looking forward to here, seeing undefeated and seeing on the main card of Bellator soon. What else we had on the card, of course, was we get to the main card. Steve Mowry defeated Sean Teed by TKO, knees and punches. First round, 4 minutes, 22 seconds. So, originally, the co-main event of Bellator 249 was supposed to be Patricky Pitbull in the co-main event, and his fight was canceled. Obviously, disappointing. You know, he had some kind of illness prior to the fight, so they did not fight. They did not have their contest. It was Jaleel Willis, and Creer Pitbull was diagnosed with something that is called Labyrinthitis on the night of the fight. So Jaleel Willis didn't get the chance to take on Patricky Pitbull in the co-main event. So this left an opening on the main card, which Steve Mowry found out he was going to be on the main card. He took on Sean T, who's a former cage fighting Fury champion, and he knocked him out by TKO. First round, 4 minutes, 22 seconds. When I asked him, did he feel very confident about this fight, knowing that his last 2 fights, they were canceled. He had a COVID-19 positive test in his last fight and wasn't able to compete, did Steve Mowry. And the work that he's been doing with none other than Sanford MMA, he's now undefeated, 8-0. He talked about that in his post-fight fight conference. And the fights against Rudy Shafroff back in February and July of this year, both were canceled. Of course, he had an injury for the first one, and that's why it was off. And then he tested positive back in July. But getting the win over Sean Teed was a huge deal for him, and a huge knockout victory as well. A guy who was a champion at CFFC prior to this, and who was on Contender Series as well. So that was a big win, and also going to do it on the main card. Still said he was nervous. Still said he had nerves they had to deal with going this fight, but he had fun doing it because, obviously your past 2 fights are canceled. You're ready to go again, and what's the worst that can happen when your last 2 fights didn't happen? You were injured or you had a health issue, and then you had COVID-19. What's the worst that can happen? That's the worst that can happen. That's out of the way, and he was ready to go. Next fight, we have Higo and Bandejas in the bantamweight division, and Ricky Bandejas lost this fight. This is his second loss in a row. He lost to Sergio Pettis when Bellator came back in July originally. This is not looking good for Bandejas. Obviously he was a guy that was looking to be that next big thing. He had a big win over James Gallagher, but he lost to Juan Archuleta and Patchy Mix, who recently fought for the bantamweight title. Got 2 victories by knockout prior to that, and then lost to the unanimous decision in late July against Sergio Pettis. Going into this fight, in the second round, Leandro Higo got that rear naked choke. Huge finish for Higo, who now climbs to a 2-0 record in the UFC. Well, he's going to be 2 overall. He's going to be 3-2 overall, 3-3 overall. So, but that's looking great. He's had a 2-fight win streak. He wins over Sean Bunch and now Ricky Bandejas. Second round, say he's ready to take on the champion. He wants a shot at the bantamweight champion, and we'll see if that happens. That's Juan Archuleta. He made his case for that, and I'd like to see that fight happen. Said that he'd like to take on James Gallagher because him and James Gallagher has had a war of words lately. So in the bantamweight division for Bellator, it's really growing. I like to see it happen like this. And a big finish, of course, for a guy who was the former bantamweight champion in the Legacy Fighting Alliance as well, in Leandro Higo, and formerly of the Ultimate Fighter Brazil Season 4 as well. Higo is a beast, and he trains, of course, with Henry Cejudo's Team Fight Ready. He has the same coach as well. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Eric Albarracin has gotten him ready, for these fights, and has done a great job doing that. And, the fact that he's now living full-time in the U.S., he can compete, he can train here. He talked about that as well, and I think we're going to see the best of Leandro Higo to come here in Bellator MMA. And then the main event, Cyborg, Blencowe, and all I can tell you is what happened. It was 2 minutes and 36 seconds of round number 1. Chris Cyborg defeats Arlene Blencowe by submission, rear naked choke, and that's crazy because it's the first time Cyborg has ever gotten a submission victory in her career. her first career victory and her first title defense of the Bellator women's title fight. I couldn't have been a better night for Cyborg against Blencowe, a woman that maybe people thought was going to give her some trouble, but not lightly. You know, it was basically going to be Cyborg all the way. The way that she prepares for each fight meticulously, the way that she trains. You know, she has male trained partners in there just as much as she has female trained partners. In fact, I would dare believe that the male partners are even more nervous to go than the female partners to go with Cyborg at this point. She's a beast. I think this is a divide and conquer situation. She becomes the best woman in Bellator, right? And she wins the featherweight title. She defends this title. Then we have Amanda Nunes. And eventually, your UFC will pay big money if Nunes keeps them dominating, right? She's got Megan Anderson on her plate. She dominates Megan Anderson. She knocks out Megan Anderson. Let's say that happens. Who else is there going to be left for Nunes to fight? And Cyborg keeps winning over at Bellator. Eventually, Dana White is going to pay the woman money. He's going to get Cyborg to fight Nunes again. I feel like this is still going to happen, even though Cyborg has said she wasn't interested in the fight at the time, and there was a whole bunch of drama show. I feel that this is going to eventually happen. I mean, for the featherweight division, you know, you've got Kat Zingano, which, you know, obviously she mentioned as being someone who was impressive in her last fight, did Cyborg, you know, but you got Julia Budd, who just had a victory in her last fight. Kat Zingano beat Leslie Smith. You know, I just don't know what's going to happen next for the Bellator. I mean, actually, it was Kat Zingano didn't beat Leslie Smith. She beat someone else, but she had a successful debut, right, in Bellator. Besides Kat Zingano, who else is there left for Cyborg? Now defeating Arlene Blencowe, who had championship experience, fought for the belt before, and fought the champion, Julia Budd, twice. You know, and was on a 3-fight win streak. There's not much left to offer for Cyborg. This is still a growing division, and don't get me wrong. And we know that Cyborg is also interested in boxing as well. You know, there's been talks about her fighting and moving over to boxing, take on Glycer Shields or Katie Taylor or some of the other great boxers. So we'll have to see if that's the next fight for Cyborg or she stays in the Bellator cage, and if it's Ngannou. But eventually, you got to think of that Dana White's going to try and entice Cyborg to come over and fight his champion, Amanda Nunes. If they both keep winning and they both keep decimating the competition, there's going to be no choice left but to make that fight happen one way or another. But we'll see, you know. And obviously, Bellator knows they're smart. They know their game plan. They know exactly what they're doing for each fight, and they know exactly what they're doing with their booking. And I thought it was an interesting fight for Cyborg. It was a woman she had never fought before, and basically just showing a different side of her. That was what was great about this fight, is just showing that different side of her. And of course, I was wrong. It was round number 2, 2 minutes and 36 seconds. She beat her. It actually went to the second round, but Blencowe took damage. I mean, in the face, and brutal shots to the face, and then all of a sudden, Cyborg takes that fight to the ground, sinks in the rear naked choke. Again, her first ever submission victory in her career. It couldn't be a better night for Cyborg. But more to come on Fightlete Report. But before we do and talk about what's next, let's talk about what's going on for Bellator next, and that's Bellator 250. That's coming up next. It was going to be on the 31st, so that'll be the next time Bellator takes place back in the cage. And I hope everybody can make sure to check it out, because it's going to be a huge card when Bellator comes back. It's going to be the welterweight championship on the line. Of course, Mousasi versus Lima for the middleweight title, rather. That'll be interesting to see what happens in that one. And, of course, Douglas Zema moving up to middleweight to take on Mousasi, who was the former champion of the middleweight division. And that'll be interesting to see what happens when that takes place on October 31st, Bellator 250. And we'll see what happens with Bellator. But moving forward on the Fight Report, we'll be back with some news headlines right after this.